EV infrastructure is a hot topic. How is it going to come along? Who's going to fund it? How are we going to make sure reliability works? And it's a big question. So I'm glad that I get to speak to experts in the field, really. So welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. I'm your host, Francie. I'm joined by Katie Wallace, Director of Communications at EVgo, and Jeremy Whaling, Senior EVSE Engineer at EVgo. So thank you for joining me today, and I'm excited to dive into the topics. We are at the LA Auto Show, which EVgo has been at year after year, right? But I've seen throughout the past years, the show has gotten a little bit smaller, and the presence of charge point operators has also changed along the way. So I wanted to know, why does EVgo think that it's important to be at this event?
You might notice this year, I believe we're actually the only public charging provider that has a booth at the auto show. We were a little surprised to see that. But there are still a lot of first-time drivers out there who are just learning about electric vehicles for the first time. And a lot of automakers and OEMs here at the show are debuting electric vehicles or teaching newcomers about them. And we want to be part of that customer education. There are a ton of people who are just joining the electric revolution. And this is an amazing place with thousands and thousands of people who get to learn about what it's like to drive an EV. They can test drive one, and they can learn about public charging infrastructure from us.
So is that mostly what's happening at your booth at this event? People coming up that are curious or have questions, and you're really taking it as an opportunity to say, this is what EVgo does, but also some EV 101 education?
Absolutely, yes. A lot of people have questions. The first thing is typically, what is EVgo and what does EVgo do? And then a lot of people want to understand the difference of, well, what is fast charging? Or they walk over to our dummy charger and say, is this a fast charger, or how fast is it? And we can get into some technical questions about what's home charging versus level 2 versus fast charging. So we're doing a lot of, back to basics, EV 101, like you said. There are also some people who come in with very technical questions who have been long-time EV drivers. And it's great to have people like Jeremy here.
They'll single me out. They'll be like, oh.
So EVgo has been really focusing on reliability, which of course I think every charge point operator has as well. But you've also in recent history announced your EVgo Renew plan. And so I'd love to talk about that a little bit and how it's really going to affect the experience of your customers and why it is maybe pushing forward EVgo as hopefully one of the leaders in the space that can really promise the best charging experience when you're out public charging.
I'm so glad you asked. We are very excited about our Renew program. We formally launched it in January of 2023, and it's not a one-time project. This is an ongoing process. It's a comprehensive maintenance program that augments and complements our previous efforts, but it is a very targeted and data-driven program that we are using to evaluate our entire network. And in some cases, we are replacing or decommissioning or ideally upgrading a lot of legacy equipment and outdated stalls. EVgo has been around for well over a decade. So some of our equipment in the field is a bit
long in the tooth.
Long in the tooth. Yeah, it's aged out of its useful life.
Yes.
So Renew is very much looking at that in order to boost reliability, but also to enhance the customer experience. That's a huge focus of ours, making sure that drivers have a successful charge. We measure what is called one and done rates, and that's where we want someone to be able to plug in and charge right away the first time. We don't want multiple attempts. We don't want them to have issues, and that's a big focus of the Renew program. We're seeing that climb. We work with our engineering team, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with, the firmware in our chargers, what happens in the software, the communications that people might not necessarily know. They just know what they see, which is a charger's screen either says yes or no. We're working or we're not.
An error code has, an error has occurred, sort of thing.
Yeah, an error might come up. So the Renew program is really, it's multifaceted. Of course, you have your 6 pillars that you're working on, which people can look into, or you could mention if I don't know them off the top of my head, but
I certainly do.
Yeah. So, and really that retrofitting. So how quickly has EVgo been able to retrofit? Because I know that's a pretty big undertaking, and that it is always necessarily just like fast charging that you're putting in, or is it maybe, if you're at the mall with the 50 kilowatt, is it a better version of that? What exactly maybe is going on?
That's a good question. So to go back to your previous points, the 6 pillars, the Renew program has a lot of behind the scenes work. The thing that the customers will see, the most visible aspect, is certainly what we're doing in the field with charger replacements. But the 6 pillars start with prevention. And that's the testing that we do at our innovation lab. And Jeremy gets to go there every day. I'm so jealous. And that's the stuff that we do before anything gets to the field. We do interoperability testing with our vehicle partners. We do software upgrade testing. We just make sure everything that's deployed on our network, including legacy equipment, can work with all the new vehicles that are coming to market. So that's a huge piece. It's testing, it's behind the scenes work. And then we work through diagnostics and analytics. We look at the data that's coming through our network. We have a network monitoring system that essentially is a health check. What's going on, what's working, what's not. We have a rapid response pillar, and that is how do we determine when we need to send people out. Sometimes a quick reboot is all you need, and sometimes we need to replace a part if something's not working.
Right.
Resilience is probably my favorite pillar of the Renew program, and that is one part redundancy in terms of the customer experience. So that's giving people multiple ways to pay, for example. So we have credit card readers, we have our app, you can use auto charge, you can use an RFID card. Some of our stations have Apple Pay. Not all, but it's rolling out soon. Resilience also means we're building bigger stations. So legacy sites in EVgo's history used to have 1, maybe 2 stalls. They are 4, 6, 8, 10. They're getting bigger, and we have faster, higher powered chargers, which is what customers want. And it helps with quick turnover. You don't have as much queuing. So a lot of things are going into the resilience pillar of the program. I feel like I'm missing. What did I miss? I only covered 5. We have prevention, rapid response, diagnostics, analytics, resilience. Oh my goodness. Continuous customer service. I feel like it's so behind the scenes and threaded throughout everything we do. It's like, well,
It's in everyone.
it's in everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
making sure that we have our 24/7 call center. The EVgo charging crew is there around the clock. If someone needs help, they help with troubleshooting. They help with account questions. It also is something that Jeremy's team works on in terms of customer experience with the screens. Like how
Right.
are people engaging with the charger itself, and making some interesting upgrades to the firmware, the HMI that you can see. That's a big part of it as well.
Sure.
Yeah, so I saw some numbers that you've done a certain amount of stalls, but I can't remember what they are. But y'all are definitely underway there.
We have upgraded, replaced, or decommissioned 350 charging stalls since the beginning of 2022.
I'm sure that's a big
Aggressive.
undertaking.
It's aggressive, and we're not done. We're still
Yeah.
we're both expanding our network and building new sites while we
Yes.
continue to look at legacy sites and do some
Yes.
replacements and upgrades.
That's a lot of hands-on work.
Yes.
Yeah, love that.
It
And
is.
you've touched a little bit on communications, not only when you're at the site and you see whatever is on the screen, and having customers understand, if something happens, what's going on, or even just, we love your interface on your chargers because it also has all the nerdy details as well. Which
The
is so
session
fun.
details button,
Yes, we
yes.
love the session details. And that's really great. But how important, Katie and Jeremy, you're in communications, but to be able to communicate to people using your stations, like if an issue does come up, how it's being dealt with, or if you're having an experience there, to educate them on what's going on, how is that prioritized at EVgo?
Great question. I'll do the customer facing stuff. You talk about what happens on the chargers.
Sure.
So we have a lot of different ways that we talk to customers. We have messages in our app. So if something is not working, you'll see it directly in the app. We also have statuses that are live. So you see if a station shows green in our app, come on down. It's available. If it's red, someone else is already using it. You got to wait. And if it's gray, it's offline. And that could be, it's quick. We have to do a quick reset. It could be it's in maintenance and we need to do a repair or send a service technician out. So that color coding is there. We also have in-app notifications. We talk to our customers via email. We're very active on social media as well. So if someone has a question, they can always tag us or send us a little mention, and we'll get back to them with whatever's going on. Sometimes there are things that are outside of our control, like a telecommunications issue happens, or a connectivity thing.
Or vandalism.
Or unfortunately,
Yes.
yes, yeah, that does happen. Cut
Yeah.
cables and smashed screens, and that's something that we deal with.
Yeah.
But we also have the screens themselves and the interface that communicates with customers. So, Jeremy, what do you do there?
Yes. So there's quite a bit. So part of it is when you have the new customer experience versus like a veteran of EV charging. And for new customers, it can be quite intimidating, like sort of like, what do I do? You get to the site and you're just like, I have the car, cord, whatever. And so we have on our home screen, we have like the 1, 2, 3, like plug in, pay, and charge up. So like try to make it very simple. Once you've plugged in, it'll show you the different payment options. Kind of even has the little animations of like the little card going on the thing or whatever like that. But also we've added communication during the setup process as well, where it lets the customer know like, hey, stuff is going on, but it may not be instant because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to start up. So we have we have like a little progress indicator. It's like the 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3. because for our newer models, the cabinet can be far away from the dispenser, and the dispenser doesn't make a lot of noise on its own when it's in the startup mode. So people were unplugging, just like thinking, oh, it's not started. And it's like everything was fine. So like we added a lot more information there to help people out.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and one other thing we did is we have a help menu as well. So we have like an info, we have a pricing screen available so people know like what the walk-up rate is. It's sort of regulatory required, which kind of makes sense. But we also have some other pricing plans on there. But we also have some info for customers, like how do you start a charge, what are their options, and different things like that. So like help screens right on the charger itself.
Right.
Because like, as amazing as our call center is, it's going to take some time to call in if you have questions. Like ideally the customer, the charger should help them through that and get through that first charge, and, have a successful charge first time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. So, I think that is really important to communicate as much as you can with the customer. So in terms of putting up sites, the EVgo is growing pretty at a good pace, would you say? And
Yes.
also,
Yes.
At a fast clip.
Very, very fast clip.
Yeah, so how's that been going? How has that been ramping up? How is EVgo really preparing yourselves and doing it so that you're putting up not only great sites that have the locations that people need, but also making sure that they're built with all the T's crossed and I's dotted?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is a big undertaking to look at a nationwide network plan. And like I said earlier, EVgo has been around for a long time. We've been doing this for more than a decade, and our growth has skyrocketed in the last couple of years as technology has gotten so much better. But it's necessitated because the cars have also gotten so much better.
Yeah.
The batteries have gotten so much bigger. So we have now grown to more than 950 fast charging locations in more than 35 states. That includes EVgo's owned and operated network and the sites that we're building through our Extend program. And that is where customers are going to start seeing EVgo stations at Pilot and Flying J travel centers all across America. We're really excited about that collaboration with Pilot and GM. And that is a complementary effort to electrify transit corridors where we have our traditional metropolitan footprints. And in fact, earlier this summer, we celebrated our 1,000th fast charging stall with General Motors in the Chicago area. We had a very fun ribbon cutting there. So we're doing kind of on both sides. We're building in cities and where people live, and also where people want to travel and play with our collaboration with Pilot Flying J. So we're building very, very fast. It's estimated that in the nation, there are just over 30,000 fast chargers today.
Okay.
And industry analysts think that we're going to need about 300,000 by 2030. So that's a 10x.
Picking it up.
That we're
Yeah.
we all have to pitch in and make that happen
Yeah.
as EV adoption continues to grow.
And that means that also, on your side of things, that you want to be engineering the best hardware out there so
Yes.
that not only is it being deployed and working right away, but that it will last a long time. That's
Yes.
right. So
Yes, of course.
how much of your work is working on that resiliency of the chargers themselves, Jeremy?
So part of it comes into, for one, so not only we need like 10x stalls, but even right now, it's the amount of utilization on our network has just gone up. Like even in the last few months has been just like a vertical line. It's amazing how many I just look on the app and you just see like all these stations all in use. You swing by one of the sites, you're like, there's cars everywhere, not just EVgo either. Like the entire industry, it feels like it's on a really fast roller coaster. What that does is for us is, for one is I'm getting a lot of data from chargers, and we do a lot of analytics around the data from our chargers and making sure that, even if you have a problem that happens like 1 in 100 or 100, 300 times or 400 times, that can be pretty difficult to recreate in the lab. So what we've been doing a lot of is doing analytics around sessions and then finding ones that don't seem to go quite right, and then capturing data from those to try to get really good on like, okay, we have to sort of drill down through all of the different problems. There might be ones that, we can easily recreate that in the lab. And then there'll be ones that like, well, this happens very, very rarely. So we need to, recreating it might be easy once we know what it is, but like just in our normal testing, we have quite extensive testing just in our normal, every single firmware goes through a couple of major safety testing, our back-end communication testing, stability, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we also are using a lot of the data analytics, and part of that where that makes that so successful is just like we have so many sessions now. So
That's pretty great that utilization is rising, which is, you were talking about how as EV adoption is going to grow. I've seen the numbers where it's like we're looking from 30 to 40 million EVs on the road
Yeah.
by 2030. So the infrastructure obviously has to scale tremendously with that. And so
Yes.
your partnerships play a big role in that too, because of course there's federal funding, which is, an important part of it, and it's available to you. So of course charge point operators are going to take advantage of that, right? But also automakers are stepping into the space as well. Not only partnerships with you, but building out their own networks.
Yeah.
So would you say the more the merrier?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Our viewpoint is that it takes all. Like a rising tide lifts all boats or floats all boats, however the
Yeah.
phrase goes. So more charging infrastructure, and especially more visible charging infrastructure, is very reassuring to people who are on the fence. And they're saying, I'm really excited about the switching over to an electric, but where is the nearest fast charger near me?
Yeah.
So the more that people can see, the likelier it is that adoption curve is just going to keep going up.
Even though most people are going to, at least a lot of them initially, their charging is going to be at home. Their primary charging is to be at home.
Yeah.
There's a couple of exceptions. I can get into that if you want to. But basically, most people are going to be charging at home for a good chunk of their charging. But there's this like marketability angle with fast charging where it's like they see it because in the gas car world, of course, you can't make gas. You should not make gasoline in your house. So it's not normally possible. You don't have a little refinery. So, but you do have a home charging stations are obviously they're quite popular, and it's of course very convenient to charge overnight and all that good stuff. But while out on the road, even in your local area, it's still very useful to have a fast charger available. If you say forget to plug in, or you do a bunch of driving, need to do a bit more, just need a quick top off, that sort of thing. And having just more available sites everywhere is going to, raise the tide.
And like you said, the majority of charging does happen at home. Some people who have workplace charging also have that benefit as well. But there's about 30% of people in the US who don't have access to home charging. I'm actually one of them. I'm a renter. And I don't have a place that I can plug in at home. So I have to rely on public charging infrastructure. And that number is going to stay pretty consistent based on housing
30%.
availability and what housing trends look like and where people want to live. So we have to make sure that there's a robust supply to augment all of it. We need home and workplace charging.
Yes.
We need level 2 charging for long dwell times, and we need fast charging. It's going to take all of it.
Yep.
Well, and so speaking of putting up more infrastructure, you also announced recently that you're doing prefab sites, right? So can you speak a little bit to that, what your plan is there, and maybe why this decision was made?
Yeah, it's in its early stages. So we're gathering some data and seeing how it's going to go. We're excited about this new approach because it reduces, the best part of all is that it reduces installation time. So a prefabrication skid, that's the word for the modular skid that we put it on, is assembled offsite, and we put all equipment together in a controlled environment, and then it's delivered in one piece. So instead of doing it all piecemeal on site, we can control it in a covered environment in a fabrication facility nearby, and ship it to the fast charging site. We're anticipating that it's going to save about 50% on the installation timeline. So that's a pretty significant savings to get sites online faster, which is what drivers want. We want more fast charging quicker.
Yes.
Right now, we have a couple of sites in the works. We issued a press release about it. The first one is going to be in Texas, and it will be available as part of our public network. And the best part about it is that it's scalable. So it starts at 6 stalls. It can go up to 20 in just a frame that gets longer. And it's really a great benefit to our site host partners because it's minimal disruption on the construction side. We don't have to do as much on the trenching. It's just a nice skid. Everything's all integrated, all the wiring, all the conduit. It's a nice clean package. And
I'm sure the more nerdy ones on the show here have looked or even taken their own construction photos and seen the number of conduits you've got, all the concrete, all the tearing up and the heavy equipment going in. So now you just kind of
Yeah. And I'm sure what you love, one of the things we're going to do with the prefabrication is there's going to be some synthetic turf to cover the skid, which will give a little cushion too for connectors in case they get dropped.
Yay!
Does happen.
Yes, of course.
We'll hope to go out and check that first site when it comes out, or any of them. And would you're saying that it'll cut that time down, which is affected by a lot of things from construction to utilities and all the above when putting in a site. But what about costs? Is this a more effective cost structure for EVgo sites?
That's what we're
still gathering.
Yeah, that's what
data.
we're hoping. We just have some early projections right now. It's expected to save about 15% on overall construction costs. Like I said, we're still early stages. We're just putting our first sites in now. We have a couple in the pipeline, And not every site is going to be the right fit. So it's going to work great in certain locations. One of the biggest limiting factors for where we can apply prefabrication is really based on terrain. So if there's a steep grade or a lot of existing trees that have deep root systems, it's not going to be great for us to use it. So it's going to be kind of a site by site approach, but we're hopeful that yes, it'll not just shave costs, it'll shave time, and we'll get fast chargers in the ground faster.
Yeah, fingers crossed that it's an effective thing for y'all. And Tesla has been doing that for a while, which I have to ask the question. Tesla is now selling their hardware. Is EVgo looking at that at all? I know you have a pretty solid relationship with Delta, where you work together, but yeah,
that's a great question. I know less about it than you do.
So
but
I can say that we explore many options for equipment. We have a very extensive criteria and due diligence in checking to see what different manufacturers offer. Part of it too now is, as we've, the 5 years that I've been at EVgo, we used to just basically purchase equipment based upon lowest cost, initial cost. So this charger costs X amount, and it costs less than this other charger.
Right.
And not considering maintenance or like longevity or anything like that. It was very much around that. And now we went eventually, first was just, okay, well, we can't think like that. We need to think about the total cost of ownership and looking at maintenance and all that sort of stuff. But now we're even going into things like, doing due diligence around design review. We do like manufacturability and repairability. Like we'll get our technicians and do teardowns and stuff to really get into the weeds with these new pieces of equipment to see that yes, they are very repairable. Here's some of the trouble spots. And even with our manufacturers, we've also told them hey, we're trying to help you build a better product, not just a better product for EVgo.
Right.
We do that a lot, and I've had to say that a few times to a few different manufacturers that I really we're really trying to make the industry better in a lot of different ways. Two of which that we really focus on is safety. So we have some stuff around the safety aspects of charging that we really try to make sure we hit. If we actually lose connection with the vehicle, we have requirements in EVgo for that. Where it has to shut down within 30 milliseconds, and we're actually finding it needs to be faster than that. But we also have stuff around just interoperability and how the vehicles communicate with the stations and stuff like that. We're very open for both those things that we do. We also have a connector qualification thing. So all that said, there's a ton more. I could talk for an hour on that alone. But the main thing is, to answer your Tesla question, is just that we look at a lot of different factors when it comes to equipment. So we are looking at everything.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, you have to be thorough, and I think that's absolutely the approach to take.
Yes.
Breaking it down, all the different metrics, but also this is an emerging industry technology,
Yes.
so figuring out exactly that process as well, I'm sure, has been something along the way that EVgo is getting better and better at.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
really great. Speaking of Tesla, NACs. So we're at the LA Auto Show, and we'll have some B-roll and stuff where you can see the NACs connector that y'all actually have on the charger
A
downstairs.
pre-production unit, so it's not
That's
the
my
exact.
question. Okay,
Yes.
so would that technically work if we tried to use it? The one downstairs.
Well, the one downstairs is for show.
For show.
it's a display charger.
It's a
to show
display
you
charger,
future
but-
state.
Okay.
Yeah. So that particular, that, and it's also missing its power cabinet. So we don't haul around the very, very heavy part of the equipment
Yes.
for good reason there. But in general, we are, that is a demonstration unit of one of our potential solutions for NACs.
Cool.
That particular one is a retrofit. So that piece of equipment is in the field. We've installing them, sort of, present tense. And that one will be, we replace the CHAdeMO connector with the NACs cable.
Okay.
Other solutions we are looking at are for new equipment, and also, but in general, looking at stations that can serve both CCS and NACs, at least in the now mid-term, just because there will be continuing to be made CCS vehicles. CCS is dominant right now for a lot of different manufacturers. But obviously, Tesla has a lot of vehicles in this market. So this helps address essentially that market.
Okay. So the one downstairs is technically demonstrating when you put on it's still using CHAdeMO, so it's not a CCS to NACs.
No. It is the NACs standard as written for J3400
Right.
is essentially electrically CCS. So this connector will be electrically CCS. It will not be electrically CHAdeMO.
Okay.
As far as the SAE 3400, there is no Tesla single wire CAN proprietary stuff in it. I have heard some things. Well, anyway, from Kyle actually that was saying things to me, and I was like, I don't know about that. That's not what I'm hearing. So,
So from your perspective, everyone's switching over to NACs, right? If an automaker hasn't announced it, they are going to, from what I've seen, it's just one after the other. And also charge point operators are going that way as well, because that's where the industry is going. So where do you think we stand with the standard? Because it's not standardized yet, right?
It is in progress. And my boss is very diligent. Keith Beckstead is very diligent about 3400. He's going to be a voting member in a bunch of stuff. He's on every call. We have a very big presence in it. And then one of my other colleagues, Jeremy Bibo, has a lot of the interoperability side of it as well. So, but right as it stands right now, it's very much, I'd say most, and it's not completely done yet, of course. So everybody's trying to basically physically build like the connectors and cables towards the standard. But then the committee is also working on finalizing those physical standards. It is a bit of, yes, the cart and the horse and
we're not
horse and cart.
It's early stages.
It's very early.
We're not ready to deploy anything yet, and the next connector is still going through those testing bodies and standards to make sure that everybody can access something that has been verified to work with interoperability and safety standards. To make sure that it works for all drivers, and we can feel assured that it's not just going to deliver a good customer experience, but there's no concerns with the technology.
And of course, with EVgo, we have a connector qualification standard, and so any cables that we work with for this, new or retrofit, have to go through that qualification standard. So we're working with many manufacturers. We work with many manufacturers on testing cables, evaluating, providing feedback to them in a very transparent way, just because we're like, again, we want to make sure that the connector is safe for everybody. You can take these changes we are suggesting or insisting on if we use that product. You can sell that product to others. We're not saying like, oh, this is the EVgo cable, it's safer for us only. Like, no. We are very much want to do that. So
electric for all, right?
Electric for all and safety electric, of course, right? So with the NACs cable, it'll be essentially no different in that sense. We'll still have to go through all those things. And so we are very busy.
Okay. I think sometimes people, the timeline for the
they want it yesterday.
Or like, when is it going to happen? But if you understand more about that, this, Tesla's been doing it their own way. But again, the standardization has to come along for companies like EVgo to do that widespread, not, like you said, cart before the horse, all that stuff. Okay, so and then also you're talking about testing. So CharIn is coming up as well.
Yes.
Right? And the testable.
Yes.
Right. So what are your goals there?
Oh, we got some fun stuff planned for that.
Yeah.
Yes, we're bringing two chargers, and we're going to do. There's a number of vehicles that are coming. I think now we're up to. It was a little low at first, but now we've got a lot more there. I think coming. So we're going to try to charge with everybody's car, with everybody's charger, and all that sort of stuff. But we're going to be doing some fun stuff there. I don't know if I can get into exact details yet, because then people think that it's a development environment for everybody. Right. So there's some new stuff in there, and it's very exciting for us.
It's a watch this space moment.
It's a very much watch this space. There's some good stuff that for the real technical people, that if you guys do some coverage there, that not just EVgo but others, they'll all be running around with some fun stuff. So it's our Delta high power, and then our City 200.
Okay.
So it's our newer City Charger, which we have a lot of in the 100 kilowatt configuration. So this is the new 200 kilowatt configuration.
Okay.
So
and I think. For our tech audience, they are curious, about how you consider the equipment that you're using and what are the decisions you make. And I don't think anything's really exclusive with EVgo, but you're considering what is out there in general is what I've got from you. Is that true? I know you've had a long-standing relationship with Delta. You use the certain cables, the Huber Schuner for the most part, but you do consider as the market, improves hopefully in the technology advances that you're always open to improving. Am I right? I don't put words in.
We want to play well in the sandbox.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's, again, part of that resilience pillar of Renew. Having a diversity of equipment on the network is great for a ton of reasons, including supply chain and just basic logistics and making sure we have a lot of options.
Yep.
And frankly, not everybody needs a 350 kilowatt machine. I mean, it's great for the future, but there's still very much need for 100 and 200 kilowatt chargers for everyone out there who has a smaller battery.
That's true.
Yes.
And so hopefully at your PFJ stations, which are the fast charging, right?
They are.
Yeah,
yes.
that's the 350s.
Great. So I stopped in one on one side of Knoxville, but I know you have some that are going to be like big with canopies, really, emanating what kind of the truck stop experience is, which is like, you pull under the canopy, it has lights, trash cans and everything. Will they all be the same like that, or can people expect a few different configurations?
I think sites can have a little bit of variability just based on where they're sited off of the expressway. So a lot of pilot travel centers, they all have the amenities inside. So they're all going to have a restroom and food and beverage purchase, Wi-Fi, things like that. Many of them will have canopies. Many of them will feature pull-through. So if you're towing something, you have a pull-through stall, which is, I know people are very excited about. Yeah. There will be some difference. So not 100% of them are going to have all those, but I would say the majority, and Pilot is really excited to offer those amenities to their drivers. And we've been really excited to expand that program with General Motors and Pilot over these last couple of weeks. And we're going to build up to 500 locations.
Yeah.
With 2,000 fast charging stalls.
Right.
Nice.
A lot's to come.
Yes.
Along the corridors, which it's been definitely a want from EV drivers, even though not everyone does road trips, but if you're going to, so that you can have these stations along the way that are comfortable to be at, not necessarily just like at a Walmart 5 miles off the highway, but just to pull off like what we're used to, which is building in, again, that convenience portion that EVgo likes to focus on as well off the highway. So that makes sense. And then briefly, one thing that we talked about earlier was resiliency. And so that telecommunications aspect, how is EVgo going to make sure that resiliency is built in there, which is something you can't always control, right?
We can't. One thing that we are working on in terms of advocating for is a difference in having contactless card payments instead of chip readers. That's a big connectivity issue itself and a failure point that can be common just on the face of a charger that is helpful in and of itself. The prefabrication model that we talked about, where we can have everything kind of embedded in this skid, can also feature some wiring that can be added if we need boosted connectivity in a specific location, because we know it might be in a bit of a desert where there's just not a lot of support for signal strength. So that's something that can be future-proofed, essentially. So we're working on it from a couple of different angles. Jeremy, you want to talk about the connectivity in the inside of?
Yes. We are doing a lot in terms of studying the data from the cellular modems. So right now, every charger has a cellular modem in it, and we use essentially now all three carriers, but we're looking more at multi-carrier solutions, so that way the modem can actually switch if it goes like, okay, I have better signal with one than the other. But also looking at connectivity when we're installing or commissioning the site. If we think there's going to be problems, or if things change over time, like we can have new towers being built, or unfortunately, cellular outages occasionally do happen, and so we can track those things, and being able to get more, again, obsessed with more data on knowing what we can do in terms of action, right? Not being in an unknown state, right? So, and fortunately, with where we're going right now, we're seeing some really good results from studying that.
Good.
So,
yeah. I mean, it seems like y'all are really putting in the effort to build a network that is not only focused on sustainability and how EVs are making the world, greener, but lasting into the future, so that this infrastructure doesn't one day become obsolete. Right? That's the goal. Build something that will last as this EV transition comes along.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I really appreciate y'all taking the time to fill us in. I think, a lot of our viewers probably experience public charging, but don't necessarily hear from spokespeople from the public charging networks a lot. So I think this will be interesting, engaging. Hopefully, let us know in the comments what you think, if you have any questions. And I really appreciate it. Is there anything that people should be looking out for EVgo in the future, or that you'd like to, put here while you have the opportunity?
People always love to dangle that one. I think one of the most exciting things that we didn't touch on in the series so far was you mentioned federal funding and the NEVI program, and it's taking off. And it's a really exciting thing. We are looking forward to leveraging more of the public-private partnerships and taking on that federal funding. In fact, EVgo has been awarded some preliminary funds in some of the states that have already issued their first rounds.
Right.
We were selected for funds with our partners, our Extend partners, Pilot and GM, in Ohio and Pennsylvania, and Utah, and a couple of other states. So we're watching a lot more as they come out. More funds will continue to be distributed throughout the course of 2024. I mean, there's $5 billion here to work with. So you're going to see a huge spike in charging infrastructure because we all get to take advantage of this support from the Biden administration.
Definitely. I think that's really significant. Of course, yeah, there's this huge amount of funding to take advantage of. Have you found that EVgo really excels in achieving or getting these grants and goals in one certain way that you're going to keep carrying through to other states?
I think we're doing well. I mean, I'm proud of our team, of course.
Yeah.
EVgo does have a great grant team. I know that other CPOs do as well, but we have a long and proven track record of leveraging public funding, and not just NEVI. I mean, we work with state energy offices, we work with utility incentive programs, make-ready programs, and have a lot of funding support from a lot of different entities. And it's because we have a proven track record of putting that to good use and deploying infrastructure where it's going to be used. So we'll just keep doing more.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, right? Improving always.
Exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and throwing in that NEVI portion, because a lot of the comments we do whenever I cover anything NEVI, it's like, can't wait for our NEVI plans to come in so we
I
can
know.
have it near me. So,
I know we're eager for it too. The states are all moving on their own timeline.
Right.
The federal pool is there, but
Yes.
all the state departments of transportation work against their own state schedule, and
Yes.
some are a little later than we might have hoped, but it's picking up pace, and
Right.
there's still a lot of other funding to fill in the gap while it's rolling out.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I think, the sooner the better with all of this. But yeah, it's interesting on the state to state level. Just different states with their different plans even. It's
Yeah,
multifaceted.
it is.
Well, thank you, Katie and Jeremy, for coming on to the Out of Spec podcast. It was great to see
Yes.
you.
It's great to see you.
Yes.
Thanks, Francie, for having us.
So great. Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in as well. Of course, let us know what you liked about more and more conversations with amazing people in the space that are doing really great work, and just to really hear what hands-on work and thought processes and, critical analysis is going into building up this infrastructure so we can have a more and more robust electric future. So thank you both.
Thank you.
welcome.
Enjoy the auto show.
Yes, yes.
Of course, if you see this and the auto show is still going on, drop by the EVgo booth. And thanks for tuning in to the Out of Spec podcast.